She was the kind of woman history nearly erased. Quiet, unassuming, the type of person who could walk into a room and leave without a single pair of eyes noticing. But inside her mind lived something extraordinary. While the world waged war with guns, tanks, and bombs, she fought with memory. And it was her memory, sharp, impossible, terrifyingly precise, that cracked open secrets the Nazi war machine believed were unbreakable. They never suspected her. They never even looked at her twice. And that was their greatest mistake. The girl with the strange gift. Long before the war, she showed signs of a mind built differently. As a child, she could remember entire pages after reading them only once. She memorized patterns on wallpaper, sequences of piano keys, the order of books on a shelf, effortlessly, without trying. When she was 7, she overheard her mother reciting a shopping list. The next day, she repeated the entire list backward. Her parents laughed, thinking it a quirky talent. But by age 12, she could memorize the layout of train schedules after a single glance. She felt the numbers and patterns, not as data, but as something living. It was strange, unusual, unexplainable, and exactly the kind of skill war would one day demand. When the war came, the occupation spread quickly, swallowing her country like a dark tide. Radios changed voices, newspapers changed tone, soldiers patrolled the streets, and soon a quiet rumor spread. They're looking for code breakers. She never imagined she would be one. Not until a teacher she trusted pulled her aside. "I recommended you," he whispered. "Don't tell anyone." "Recommended me for what?" she asked. "For a job that doesn't exist. And if you do it well, it may save lives." Days later, she found herself entering a nondescript building with covered windows and guards who never smiled. Inside, she was greeted not by soldiers, but by academics, linguists, mathematicians, cryptographers, men who saw the war not through rifles, but through codes. One of them placed a sheet of encrypted text in front of her. Pages of seemingly random letters, symbols, and numbers. "Study these," he said. "Let us know when you're ready." She looked at them once, then again. The third time, the pattern sang to her like a melody. "These messages aren't random," she said softly. "There's structure, rhythm, repetition, here, here, and here." The men exchanged stunned glances. She didn't realize it then, but in that moment, she had just been recruited into one of the most secret operations of the entire war. The memory that became a weapon. Most code breakers required pencils, sketch pads, chalkboards, entire walls filled with symbols, but she wasn't like them. She never wrote anything down, not because she didn't want to, but because it was safer if she didn't. If the enemy raided the building, if papers were seized, if notes were stolen, everything she knew would still be locked inside her head. And her memory became a vault that no spy, no soldier, no interrogator could ever touch. She memorized entire messages instantly. Then she memorized the patterns behind them. Then the patterns behind the patterns. Others struggled for days to understand what she grasped in minutes. She saw the codes like a living organism, growing, shifting, breathing. She could walk through its structure in her mind, dismantling it piece by piece until it revealed what it hid. Soon, the most difficult messages, the ones no one else wanted, were handed to her. Not because she was senior, not because she was confident, but because she was the only one who could crack them without leaving a trail. The night the code changed. One night, everything shifted. A message arrived with symbols none of them recognized. The usual patterns were gone. the familiar rhythms broken. It was as if the enemy had built an entirely new code overnight. The room fell silent. If they couldn't break it, thousands of lives could be at risk. She studied it. Lines of letters, columns of numbers, a strange syntax that made no sense at first glance. Hours passed. Midnight fell. Cryptographers rubbed their eyes. But she stayed still. Then, softly, she whispered, "They didn't change the code completely. They changed the frame." No one understood. She explained, "They're hiding a new structure inside the old structure. That's why nothing matches. The real message is underneath, layered like lace." She closed her eyes, and inside her mind, the message unfolded. A plan, a movement, an attack scheduled for the next morning. She repeated the decrypted message aloud, every word precise. Her voice didn't shake, but everyone else in the room did. The message was sent immediately. Because she had solved it, a sabotage team was pulled back. An ambush was avoided. Civilians were evacuated. Soldiers repositioned. Hundreds lived. She saved all of them, with nothing but memory. The enemy came looking. Her abilities had two consequences. She saved lives. She attracted suspicion, not from her own side, but from Hitler's. Reports began appearing. A leak. Someone is breaking our ciphers. Find the source. They intensified security. They sent spies across borders. They looked for stolen documents, smuggled notes, missing files. What they never considered was the truth. There were no documents, no notes, no scraps of paper. Just a woman whose mind worked like a machine they couldn't comprehend. The interrogation. One night, the resistance safe house she worked from was raided. She was seized, blindfolded, dragged into a truck, and thrown into a cold room where a single lamp swung overhead. "Where are your notes?" the officer demanded. "I don't have any," she replied. "Where are your codes? Your formulas?" "I don't write anything down." "Impossible," he snapped. "No one remembers that much." She looked up slowly. "I do." Hours passed. Questions turned to threats. Threats turned to silence. But there was nothing to find, nothing to seize, nothing to expose. Eventually, frustrated and confused, they released her, believing she was nothing more than a frightened secretary who had been caught in the wrong place. They never realized the danger sitting right in front of them. The code that ended everything. Near the end of the war, a strange message appeared. One unlike anything before, full of broken fragments, inconsistencies, symbols she had never seen. It wasn't encrypted poorly. It was encrypted desperately. The regime was collapsing. They were scrambling. She studied the message for hours, pacing the room, tracing invisible shapes in the air. And then she understood. The message wasn't meant to hide something. It was meant to save someone, a defecting officer, a planned extraction, a list of people who wanted out before the regime fell. Men, women, children. She broke the code quietly, handed the list to her commander, and said, "These are the ones who want to live." Many of them did, because of her. The woman history forgot. When the war ended, medals were given, parades marched, books were written. But her contribution? Almost no one knows, because she had no documents to show, no records, no evidence. Everything she carried lived only in her mind. And when peace returned, she wanted to let it go. She left the city, moved to a quiet town, and repaired radios to support herself. People who met her later in life had no idea she once cracked codes that shaped the outcome of battles. Sometimes, at night, she would sit by her window, hearing distant trains. She could still picture the patterns of numbers on their schedules, still feel the rhythm of messages she once decrypted, still see those cities inside her mind. But she never wrote any of it down. She didn't need to. She was the woman who broke Hitler's codes, with nothing but memory. And some memories are strong enough to save a nation, yet quiet enough to never be spoken again.